Welcome to Dear Book Coach. I'm Stephanie Detlefs, writer and book coach in Bellingham, Washington.
I'm Terry Thayer, author, book coach, and certified focusing professional from Longmont, Colorado.
I'm Carrie Savage. I'm a writer and book coach in Somerville, Massachusetts.
And this is a friendly advice space for you as you plan, draft, and revise your novel. In each video, we answer one question submitted by a writer like you, and we give you 3 different points of view. You get to pick the advice that resonates for you today. So today's question comes from Cora. I am really struggling to get any writing done. I think it's because I can't figure out a routine. I've tried getting up early to write, and I've tried writing at night. I've tried writing on my lunch break at work. Whatever I try works for a few days, and then something gets in the way. I feel like I have to write a certain amount each week, or it's just not worth it. How do I figure this out? I really want to write this book. Terry, you want to take that one first?
Sure. First of all, I would say forgive yourself. Just start fresh every time. You don't have to have a schedule that works for everybody else. You can just figure out, what works for you this day, this week. Start fresh every time in terms of not worrying about what you did yesterday. Don't beat yourself up. Perhaps you want to celebrate what you've done rather than what you didn't do. I think as a species, get into this habit of really noticing what we haven't done as opposed to what we have finished. I've lately started a to-done list so that I can know at the end of the day that I actually did things, because the to-do list is daunting. And remember, 1 page day is a book in a year. So, you can write as little or as much as you like and still get your book done. I'd also think about what constitutes writing for you. Thinking about writing is writing. Reading and researching, those are all writing, and sometimes we don't give ourselves credit for that. In terms of like habit forming, what's worked for you in the past? There are some habits that in your life that you've created, even if it's just as simple as brushing your teeth at night, just remembering how you did that. I read a great book this past year called Tiny Habits by B.J. Fogg, who's a Stanford researcher, and he talks about linking things. So when you brush your teeth, you go write a page. Or when you make your cup of tea, mine is I make my cup of one of tea kettles before it boils. I have to do a couple of squats. So anything that can link it to something else will help. Here's something I think I learned from Ernest Hemingway. I'm not sure, but leave your writing in an exciting place. So, we all have that impetus to finish the scene, finish the chapter, finish whatever dialogue we're writing, but try leaving it in the middle where you're at a point you know what's going to happen next and you're kind of excited about it. You can stop and make some notes to yourself. This is X, Y, and Z is going to happen next. But that way you come to the page the next morning and you've got something to finish, and that might, get you stimulated and keep you going. Stop yourself before you've exhausted all of your ideas. So that's what I have to say. And it's over to you, Carrie.
Well, I had to laugh because I thought, did I submit this question? Am I Cora? And guys, I might be, because this is definitely something I've struggled with. I continue to struggle with, frankly. And so, like, to sort of echo what Terry said at first, like, give yourself some space, be kind to yourself. There are days, weeks, even months that, it might not be working for whatever reason, whether it's you're busy, because, there's life outside of writing, whether it's just not happening. And we won't call it, like, I don't want to call it writer's block because I don't necessarily think that that's a thing. It's just sometimes for whatever reason, it's not happening. And that's okay. You can, we've all go through that. It doesn't mean that you're not going to write the book. It doesn't mean you can't write the book. You'll get there. Just have a little space to be kind to yourself, forgive yourself for those days that, or however long it is, that it doesn't quite work. And another thing is to give yourself permission to try different ways to fit it into your schedule. I know one of the things that I'm definitely guilty of is to say from say 10 to 12 every day, like I'm going to write. And then, you know, the first day that that doesn't happen, and it can be like 2 or 3 days into this effort, it doesn't happen for whatever reason. And then that sort of absolutist thinking, you're just like, well, that's it. I've blown it. It's, I can't do this. And that's just not true. I think you just, you find different ways to make things work at different points in your life. What may have worked in the past is definitely worth trying again. As Terry was saying, think about what has worked before, but also, if that doesn't help, then try something different. And maybe it's a different yardstick. Maybe it's instead of a set amount of time to write, you want to try to hit a word count or a page count. Page a year is a book. I mean, a page a day is a book. There we go, maths. Or maybe choose a scene that you've really been looking forward to writing as a way to, say, okay, like this week I'm going to work on this thing. And that will help you sort of establish that kind of a habit. Another thing is, do you have a friend who's also trying to start forming a new habit? And it doesn't have to be writing. It could be anything. I know for a little while with my writing partner, just had a thing where I had to push through something and I was having a really hard time. And for 2 weeks, she just said, email me what you've written every day. I'm going to be looking for it. I'm going to give you a hard time if you don't send it to me. I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to critique it, but I'm going to be looking for that message in my inbox. And that, knowing that I had that accountability there, really kind of helped me push through this one period where I knew I needed to get stuff done, but I was having a difficult time. So yeah, have an accountability partner. That can be really helpful. And again, it doesn't have to be another writer. Maybe somebody else is trying to, do a 5K or something like that. And you get to make sure that they did their walk, jog, run that day or something. And last but not least, something that has been definitely helpful for me with the absolutist thinking is to give yourself some space to have a flexible schedule. I, like I said, tend to get into trouble when I say I'm going to do the same thing every day. And I don't have children, and I have a very flexible schedule just as the nature of it. So I don't have a lot of the constraints that other people have, but just being able to have that flexibility to say, like Tuesday is not always going to look like Wednesday. And being able to only plan maybe a day in advance or a week in advance so that, I'm not trying to say 3 Tuesdays from now, I'm going to write from 10 to 12, that maybe that's not going to work. Say I only do a week in advance, but I feel more confident that I can stick to that time and let people know in my life, like, oh no, I can't do this last minute thing because this is the time that I have set aside. So those are some practical things that have worked for me. Obviously still a work in progress. So Stephanie, what do you think?
Yeah, just listening to the two of you, I'm realizing that the common theme, I think, that you're going to hear from all three of us today is the idea that it's okay to have a flexible schedule, that it doesn't need to be a certain way. And the thing that I want to stress about that in particular is that there's no right way to have a writing schedule. It kind of bugs me sometimes when it doesn't bug me, I shouldn't say that. Sometimes when I hear a well-known writer talk about their writing schedule and people are like, "Ooh, what's your writing life like? What is your writing schedule like?" I feel like the listeners are hearing that is what I have to do in order to be as successful as you are. And I would just urge you to consider that everybody's life is different. Everybody's circumstances are different. Your time in the day is different than the next person. And honestly, maybe your writing stamina is different. Like I hear people say they write for 5 or 6 hours a day, and I cannot personally do that. I know that about myself. And so I just would encourage you, like both Carrie and Terry have said, to be really gentle with yourself and also acknowledge the things that are possible for you. That said, I do believe, and I always recommend to people, that you strive for a minimum of about 4 hours a week. And the reason that I say that is because it's enough time in a week to keep a project moving forward. If you go for weeks and weeks with very little writing, it's really hard to see the progress that you're making, which can become frustrating, which can then add to the mindset that causes you not to write when you've scheduled some time for writing and all of that. So it's enough to keep yourself motivated and feeling like you're making progress, but it's also a short enough time that it's easy to find pockets. Like maybe you just write for 4 hours on a Saturday and you call it good for the week. Or maybe you do 15 minutes here and a half an hour there. There is no right way to do it. What I would say is that it doesn't have to be, like Carrie said, it doesn't have to be the same time every day. I like to mix it up. I generally write better in the morning, but sometimes mornings aren't available to me and I need to do it later in the day. You find what works for you, experiment a little, what feels the best. Then I would suggest that you try this experiment. On a piece of paper, map out 3 typical days of the week that are different from each other. So maybe 1 weekend day and then 2 weekdays that are different for whatever reason. And then kind of map them out hour by hour. What does that day typically look like? Then within those schedules, look at where the blank spaces are. Could those be pockets of time that you're writing? Do you need to get up at 5 a.m. to write, or could you maybe write in this little window of time between 1 and 3 p.m. that you have? It's about practically looking at what you've got and working within that rather than trying to force some arbitrary schedule on yourself. I would also recommend talking to yourself, whether it's through journaling or just thinking about what your commitment level is to this project. Because as we've said in past videos, you have to have kind of a mindset of commitment to move a project, especially a book length project, forward. And so as you're looking for those time periods, also explore within yourself, what is my actual commitment level? Because it maybe you're forcing something that you're not really committed to, and that's not going to feel good either. I also agree that it's worthwhile to just set short-term goals. So for the next 2 weeks, this is what my writing schedule is going to look like. For the next 8 weeks, whatever works for you, rather than trying to say, okay, for the rest of time, I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. and write. Like, that's exhausting because, as Carrie said, there's going to be times that it just doesn't happen for whatever reason. And Terry, I have to tell you, I'm taking that to done list idea and I'm starting it today. That is my favorite thing I have heard in months.
Well, it's ta-done, by the way.
Ta-done. Oh, that's even better.
Love it.
Even better.
Yeah, it's really helpful. I actually have a bulletin board that says to do, I don't know what the other one is, and then the done. And I have little pieces of paper on them and I move them over, physically move them over. And you can see that, oh, there's fluttery papers that are actually done.
So satisfying.
Oh yeah, so that's the thing. Be flexible, forgive yourself, and try some things out, Cora.
Find what works for you. There's no right way to do it.
That's right. So that's it for today. We hope you found an answer that made sense to you at this point in your life, at this point in your book. Remember, you can submit your question anytime at Dear Book Coach, and we hope you do. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.